to ask my speakers to come on live, to turn your cameras and your microphones on, and I'd love to introduce you all and just share with our panel or with our audience a little bit about who we have on the call today. This is an important topic, and all of you are really well versed in this. I'm sitting with thought leaders and activists in our community who have been doing the good work for a long time. So we're going to end up starting with Terry. He's going to give us a bit of an overview of the high-level nuts and bolts of the situation in Health Canada. But Terry's a naturopath and a registered herbalist. You know, he has been working for quite a long time. Right now, he's in Barrie, Ontario, and he is part of the StFrancisHerbFarm team. And if you've ever tried any St. Francis products, they're amazing. He's been the director of research and development there. He's put together a lot of NPNs. He's done a lot of work with Natural Health Regulatory Advisory Council and the Health Food Association, the CHFA, and is just a real advocate for natural medicine and herbalism as a whole. So Terry's going to start us off, but I'm going to just introduce all of our panelists so you kind of get a sense of who's on the call. Gavin Mah has been basically a massive part of this movement forward around plant medicine. You know, he and just around just natural health in general. He's been an advocate for preserving the traditional Chinese medicine in Canada, and he's currently working on helping to do the same for homeopathy, for herbal medicine, and natural products. You know, he was the first kind of one of his first companies he started was with Sisu Enterprise, and now Gavin works. He's a super achiever, and so he's been doing a lot of work with his current company is Biomed, and they're one of Canada's highest quality professional lines. He's been an advocate in the CHFA and is one of these people who is currently helping put together a lot of the STOP, the cost recovery plan, and the SOS plan that CHFA has been putting together, and lobbying within the government and lobbying on behalf of the natural health industry. So he's got a lot to share about this topic. Katolen is our current president of the CCHA, the Canadian Council of Herbal Associates, and she's also past president of the BC Herbal Association. She's been on this for a long time, helping since the beginning be an advocate for herbal medicine in helping to get some of the clauses into the back end of Health Canada around formulation and compounding, but also really bringing awareness to plant medicine for Health Canada. And in that sense, she's a private practice for over 20 years. She takes on apprenticeship programs. So any of you who are looking for an apprenticeship program with a great herbalist, I know I've talked to many people who've apprenticed with her, and just a really well-rounded approach. She focuses on female health as well as digestion, skin issues, and I think she's pretty fascinated by the nervous system in general. She's told me, or seen. So she's going to be sharing a lot about this as well. We also have Marie Provost, and she's a visionary herbalist from Quebec. She's a pioneer in the tradition of herbal medicine and a founder at Clef de Champ, which was founded in 1978. And they're another one of Canada's great tincture companies, but they also have this whole, I would call it almost farm to table approach, where they really make a lot of this medicine through their farm, doing really an innovative way of kind of doing that whole level of production all the way up. And she's been a massive advocate for herbal medicine in Canada. Again, one of the founding members of the Quebec Herbal Association, and she's been on this strongly involved in the new Health Canada regulations. Ever since the beginning, I always saw Marie as one of those people who was fighting this fight for getting NPNs, going through this process. Anybody who's been through the process of getting an NPN knows that there's a lot involved. This is already a really high bar we have in Canada, and all of these people have done the work to kind of help support at least what we have right now, and have started to bring that to the next level. So we have a really good group of speakers here to share their insight. They've all been in the industry for multiple decades and really have been steering the ship for Canadians around what the regulatory issues are. And right now, those of you who don't know, we are in the midst of another sort of reinvention of Health Canada regulations. And they've put out some things around this that are very challenging for a lot of Canadians. They've got a lot of feedback, and I'm going to let Terry give us the high level, but even in me just speaking to my MP, he's like, oh, I know exactly what you're here to talk about. He's like, you know how many letters we've got? Like, so as Canadians, we've actually already done a pretty good job of like voicing this. But, you know, Gavin was just sharing in the beginning, he was speaking to a bunch of naturopaths, and most of them had no idea what was happening. And so there's still a lot that we need to keep this voice going and bring a lot of awareness to people. So Terry, I'm going to pass it over to you just to kind of start us off and give us the high level. What is actually happening? Where do we come from here? And yeah, the nuts and bolts of what are the industry's concerns?
Yeah, thanks so much, Yarrow. Hopefully my sound is coming through okay. Great. I'm very happy to be here representing StFrancisHerbFarm, of course, a long time manufacturer of herbal products in Canada. Actually, it was Jeremy and Monique founded St. Francis in the 80s on Vancouver Island. In fact, that is not known. Yeah, they were living at Duncan at the time. And in the late 80s, they moved the farm to the Ottawa Valley, which is where we're located now. You did mention Barrie. It's actually Barry's Bay.
I'm sorry. There you go.
It's hard to mix up the two because Barry's Bay is almost as big as Barrie. Just kidding. But anyways, yeah, we love it up here. We're in the just east of Algonquin, very beautiful spot. So just as Yarrow mentioned, I've been a naturopathic doctor. I'm going on 30 years. You can probably guess that from my gray hair.
So it looks like you have a halo above your head.
I'm sorry, I can't turn that light off.
You're like an angel.
Don't believe the halo. Anyway, just to give you a high level snapshot of what we're facing from Health Canada right now. And it's hard to know where to start, but basically the cost recovery proposal is what is likely the most significant challenge that we've been facing as an industry in many years. In fact, in the late 90s, Jeremy and Monique actually closed their business, and they were going to move their business south of the border because they were facing they had at the time Health Canada had proposed the DIN process, the drug identification number for natural health products, and they spearheaded a campaign that basically got that overturned. And basically, we're facing something similar now with this cost recovery. So basically, Health Canada has proposed to implement costs to recover what they deem are their costs for regulating our industry. So as just a general guideline, so when you submit a product license with Health Canada, they place them into different categories or classes. So they have 3 classes. Class 1 is a PLA or product license application that just references their monograph, a published monograph. Class 2 is one that you have multiple ingredients referencing their monograph. And class 3 is a application that's not covered by one of the monographs they publish. So their proposal is $1,100 for a class 1, $2,700 for a class 2, and $7,200 and change for a class 3. And then what they consider a novel application, and of course, in this case, the devil's in the details, which they don't publish, $58,000. So one of the biggest hurdles we see here is there's going to be another significant impediment to innovation in our space. Right, we've already experienced that because of the whole NHP process. I mean, there's no patent protection in our industry. There's no, everything is completely disclosed. Health Canada's own databases disclose everything. Our labels now have to disclose everything. Of course, there are good things about that, and there are disadvantages, of course, from an industry perspective. On the other hand, in drug medicine, they do have patent protection. So there's a lot of advantages in the prescription sphere that we don't have in the natural sphere. So those are just some of the fees. And one last thing is what they call the right to sell is that they want to charge $542 per natural product number that a company has. So just to give you a little perspective, St. Francis Herb Farm has roughly 400 NPNs. Not all of those are active. In number of SKUs is in the 300s. The number of active NPNs is probably between 100 and 200. So that would represent an additional cost of about 70,000 just for the right to sell per year. One of the worst parts of this is that there are many companies, and I'm sure Gavin will speak to this, that have very high a very large number of products. So if you're a homeopathic company, for example, or a traditional Chinese medicine company with many, individual remedies or herbs and that sort of thing, this can be quite costly. And so obviously, if you're not selling, we have products that are catered to what we in medicine we call orphan drugs or orphan diseases. Things like we don't necessarily have herbal medicines specific to orphan diseases, but less common things. So, for example, hypothyroidism is quite common. Hyper is less common. We have two products addressing those two different needs. The one for hyperthyroidism we don't generate a lot of income from that product. So those kind of things would disappear from the market. High level estimate is that natural health products will increase in price as a result of this by about a third.
And a lot of discontinuations, as you've said, is a big issue. I'm sure Clip to Shops has the same kind of challenge. We have the same thing at Ironic Arts, where a lot of our, other than just maybe ashwagandha and valerian, like you want other nervines or you want other adaptogens, there's no way that the market can bear that. And what we have right now in the market is 4 kinds of valerian, but no, blue vervain or no of these obscure herbs. We're missing this because it's already cost prohibitive to get those NPNs and also to carry those products. So what they're proposing, as you kind of mentioned, is a massive amount to the tune of quite a few thousand, well, to $100,000 per company, depending on the SKU count they have. And a lot of that, sorry, Terry, to just kind of jump in here, but a lot of that is just pushing paperwork across. When it comes to the site licenses, they're not doing a lot more. Anyway, there's a lot there. I feel like maybe at some point, if we have the time, I will pull up a couple of web links for us to kind of look at the government's website and see what they've proposed, because or at least we'll put them in the chat for people to look on their own.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm just giving you a high level industry perspective from our perspective at St. Francis. But if you'd like, I can pass it on to perhaps Gavin or Marie would like to.
Is there anything else, so from my understanding, it's like a threefold thing. It was the Bill C-47 that got passed that changed natural products into kind of the same level of what pharmaceutical, or should it make them therapeutic products, which changed the whole game. And then it was also this plain labeling law and this cost recovery. These are sort of 3 of the issues on the table at the same time. Am I correct in that? Is that what you all see as well as part of this challenge?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So C-47 is also known as Vanessa's Law. So basically it gives Health Canada more teeth, I guess you could say, when it comes to if there's any adverse reactions to natural health products. Currently, the fines are $5,000 for an offense. In the drug sphere, that's closer to $5 million. Health Canada has also claimed that they've had 770, I think it was, reports of serious adverse events as reported in their database of adverse events. CHFA actually, and probably Gavin will know more details about this, but CHFA actually hired a third party to dig into the details on that, because it was very difficult to determine which of the products on their database were actually from natural health products and which weren't. And what they concluded was the actual number was closer to 32. So 32 serious adverse reactions involved natural health products. And of those 32, almost all of them included a combination of natural health products with the individuals also taking prescription medications. So a lot of the claims about safety are very much bloated, but Vanessa's law is something that we don't. It's already it's already been passed. It's not under consultation. The other one is the plain language labeling. So one of the audits for Health Canada suggested that the labeling of natural health products, the labels are not easy to read. So this new regulation has proposed increased font size, product tables, etc., which is going to add a lot of cost to companies to comply with as far as the cost of labeling. A lot of small packages are going to have peel and reseal labels, which adds an environmental impact because they're no longer recyclable. A lot of companies are going to be using more cartons. We already had to adopt cartons because of all the extra label information that was required as a result of licensing our products. And a lot of the products that don't have cartons will in the future probably require cartons because of the added size of the font, etc. So, and then so it's the three different aspects: the cost recovery, the plain language labeling, and C47s.
And just in a nutshell, that's what you're saying will kind of lend to, at least 30% more increase in price and the dropping off of a lot of these products.
No, that's exactly right. So as herbalists, there is a gray area, of course. So for those who dispense in a direct practitioner client relationship, there is still a gray area, but the way I'm seeing things now with Health Canada kind of coming after us in so many different ways, I don't see this sort of direct patient or client practitioner relationship. I doubt that's going to stay in an exempt sort of area for much longer. So I would say as herbalists, we really need to really get on the bandwagon and start banging on the doors, especially have meetings with your NP to let them know, that you're not happy with what's happening.
Well, I know that Gavin has a massive handle on all this. I'm going to make him go last because he's going to add everything in that we know. And I really want to hear from all of our speakers have great depth of understanding of what's going on. And I feel really proud of our industry to be so proactive despite what seems like doom and gloom. A lot of people in our industry are really activated to not see this happen. And in talking to my MP, he was like, wow, he was definitely blown away by how much the whole government has heard about this. So Marie, you've been doing this work for a long time, ever since the beginning of MPNs. You're a fighter and really helping to preserve herbalism in Canada. So maybe give us a little bit of your thoughts on where we came from and what this new situation presents.
Yeah, first I absolutely go in the same trail as what Terry described as an impact for Cladesha and other herbal company. If I give a background, I was already having a Cladesha in 96, and I remember very well of February 96 receiving a letter that I had 3 months to comply and hold a side license. And register to be able to register for DEN for my products. And I remember that year when we started protesting, I wrote a petition letter in French, of course, that was meant for, I was the president of Guild of Herbalists at that time, and I was regulatory, I took on the battle for regulation. So I wrote that letter, and 6 months later, I received the exact same letter. I mean, it's a page-long letter that I wrote, and I received it translated in English in my Dominion Herbal College package. So I thought, oh, that's great.
That's great.
I like that. And I think that this is a very important thing that you said, Yarrow, that the people rising is our only strength. And this is our only baton, this is the only way that we can stir the boat. And this is what we did in 96 and 98. I presented a memoir in the Standing Committee on Health. And when the regulation was in process, I sat at every consulting room. I have the luck to live a 2-hour drive from Ottawa. So I drove from Val-David to Ottawa many, many times. And I sat in all the open committees, and then I was nominated, and I sat for 4 years on the Management Advisory Committee with 12 other people. And we were there to advise the implementation of regulation. I have seen the the downgrading and the narrowing of the ability for herbal medicine and natural products in general within the process. I remember one day walking in Ottawa in a consultation group, and at one point a slide came in, and it was a natural health product is a subset of drugs. Until that moment, we were going to have a new law for a natural health product. And in the process, it became a subset of drug. And I think that the worst thing, the tipping point of what's happening right now is when they merged the non-prescription drug directorate with the natural health product. And I think that our strength is really to push the button and to bring the regulator back to what was stated. We have to come back to the recommendation of the Committee on Health of '98, saying that stating that natural health products are not as dangerous as drugs, and that they should be treated in respect to this. And I think this is really what is drawing us right now, what is killing us, because of course, for a drug manufacturer, for over-the-counter drug manufacturer, $542 per year to hold a license is a joke. I mean, it's nothing. And it's really a question of perspective, where for us, because we hold a large number of products, because this is the nature of what we do, they have to hear that the environment, that the business environment is totally different. When I start looking at background information in my files, it was very funny. Yesterday I was trying to open a file. It was in WordPerfect. It tells you how back it went back. I couldn't open the file because it was WordPerfect. So I found a document of 1997 on cost recovery. We heard about cost recovery from day one. From day one. We were going to have a 10 years moratorium, a 10 years period of grace. We had 20, but already in 1997, there was a mention, an intention stated by the regulator in written. I have this, that only a portion of the cost should or could be collected from the industry to avoid too heavy financial load for small manufacturers. I think that we have to bring this back and say, listen, guys, this in 97, it wasn't, we didn't have natural hair product directorate in 97. This was for drugs. And even for drug company in 97, where they were consulting to Publishing Gazette One, they were stating, be careful, we have to hold on and we have to keep some of the fees because some companies won't be able to hold this. So I think that we have to agree. you know, from first day when I heard about the cost recovery last spring, people say, what is this? Or what are they inventing? No, we've been hearing about that for 20 years. Sorry. So I don't think that we can discuss the principle of cost recovery, but we really have to push the button of mitigation. And I think that this is really our way out, our exit is to reorganize the mitigation so that really small companies or companies with, as Terry exactly said, you know, we have more than echinacea. It's funny you mentioned ashwagandha because I was writing, you know, say there is more than echinacea, St. John's wort, and ashwagandha. You know, we also want to be able to offer a complete pharmacopoeia. And having, you know, I sat down for so many years with Chinese medicine representative in the committees that I know perfectly that the Chinese medicine and the homeopathic, we all have the same pattern that we need. This is the nature of our, I wouldn't say business, this is the nature of our mission to offer a complete pharmacopoeia, and the government has to respect this. And this is where who will, the government, the regulator will hear us, yes, but they will hear the thousands and thousands of voices of people saying, let me get my products. One thing I think that so of course it's already very costly to have you know, in the regulation since we merged with non-prescription drug.
Could you give us an idea of what that has kind of cost you, just to understand, or just like a rough of like, have you put hours, full people's times into this? Like, how is this?
No, no. The thing is that merging the non-prescription drugs forces the regulator to be more stringent because there are a higher risk product in the category now. So, and nothing yet has changed that much, but we see forehead that there is a narrowing, and this is why they are proposing a new classification. This is why they are changing the application, because there are a wider range of product from cosmetic to non-prescription drugs. So they have to come out with a system that works for everybody. And, you know, we used to say 97 when we got out with our sign in the streets, you know, we'd say there's this law in Canada, it's food and drugs. And we, the medicinal herbs, you know, we are on the, how do you say that in English, you know, in the ditch, you know, between the two roads. We're not drugs and we're not food, you know. No one puts golden seal in their soup for taste. Let me tell you.
You don't have golden seal smoothies for breakfast?
So we don't pretend that we are food. We cannot be drugs. So please give us a life. And now it's like the round has come out, you know, to an end where we are back to the future with nothing. One last thing that, so of course, it's very interesting, the figures that Terry was mentioning, because we did our calculation. We came out with 75,000, 80,000 cost per year to maintain our product, and a raise of 20 to 30% on the cost of products, and a drop of between 20 and 30% of our SKUs. So figures are quite, you know, similar, are quite the same. And this makes no sense because we're not fighting this for business purposes, you know, because for business purposes, anyone will tell you it's your 80-20, you know, keep your 20% SKUs that gives you 80% of your business. You know, the problem is that we're herbalists. So we don't just run businesses, you know, we want to.
We're not just looking for the top sellers, right?
Exactly. No, we have a mission to, you know, it's a mission also, you know. So, so this is really what we have to fight for. I think that it's really important that people understand that they will lose access to so many products, and that we have to push on to have the regulator recognize that the use of natural health product, not non-prescription drug, not cosmetics, no, the use of natural health product, especially herbal medicine, is of course on, people pay from their pocket for that. So, and it provides and it keeps some financial load out of Medicare. I mean, we buy products, we get healthier, so we cost less to the health system. And I think that this has to go also into the calculation. So I think I'll pass the puck to Gavin, if I
That's
might.
great. Before we do though, I just want to echo what you said and just say it in another way, that like the health system that is currently in existence with the medical health system will be affected by this too, because people will not have access to other forms of medicine that can support them in finding like natural health. And I just think that that's really narrow tunnel vision thinking, to not put those two together. Yeah.
So there's
Gavin,
much to say.
I know you got lots to share on this. You have been a activist, really like one of the spearheads to this this movement around this. I know that wasn't what you initially thought you were signing up for, but being that, courageous person that you are, you've really taken this one on. So share with us a bit of the journey that's happened so far and what you've seen and what you think is happening at this point.
Yeah, thank you, Yarrow. It's interesting. So my background, first of all, I'll let you know, like in 1987, I walked into Finlandia Natural Pharmacy and ended up talking to Harlan. And we were talking about quality of products then and what products work and what products were just marketing. Long story short, I started working for him. That's a long time ago. And listening to Marie there, Word documents, in 1987, there wasn't even computers. So it was punch cards. Yes. So there was no Word document to look at. And we had microfiche at going to the university to look up stuff, or Funk and Wagnall Encyclopedia. There was Herbal books, and there was a lot of other books, and there was a lot of great books. And so from that time, I learned a lot from this industry. And about 4 years ago, Harlan asked me to come back to Finlandia Pharmacy. That's why I'm still familiar with many of your companies, because Finlandia has been such a pioneer in natural health and selling and helping educate on all these natural alternatives, whether it be traditional Chinese medicine, homeopathy, herbals, vitamin supplements, etc. And Harlan and I, this last weekend, we were up in Whistler walking through the Emerald Forest. And I kind of make a joke that we didn't find the wizard, because we were looking for the wizard to help us solve all the problems we're facing with Health Canada. But I want to bring that to let you know that the personal impact, as we have these talks, Harlan said, I've been fighting. I opened Finlandia 47 years ago. This was last year. And he goes, it's time. I would love to keep in it to own it to 50 years, but this is a fight I can no longer do as I'm getting older. And, I'm not sure if you know, we recently sold Finlandia, and a lot of changes happened because we couldn't maintain our herbal compounding to the quality we wanted to, because Health Canada was auditing every single raw material we brought in from Europe and around the world and saying, okay, show this complete supply chain. We want to know this. Show us suitability testing on how your herbs are going to be stable. And it gets so complex that a lot of people go, whoa, I don't even know about that. So the things that Terry mentioned are very valid. But the most important two that are going to, that we can do something about is cost recovery and plain language labeling. Plain language labeling, they already, I think it was July 6th last year, they already annexed it, and it's law. But the issue with that is they're still tweaking it. And people like the Environmental and Climate Change of Canada, they haven't even looked at it, and they're going to come up with all these other cautions and warnings and recycled packaging and stuff that's going to come into play in the future. So what Health Canada is doing now, they haven't even talked to other committees in Ottawa to see what they're going to be doing with labels on our packaging. So for this reason, if they implement something now, as soon as ECCC looks at it, they're going to say, whoa, we have to change it again. So for us, for any importers, manufacturers, distributors, we're going to be looking at doing the same exercise again after we've already changed our labels to comply with what they're saying we have to for June of 2025, right? So there's a lot of moving parts, and not only so I hope everyone understands, plain language labeling, depending on how many products you have, can cost a lot of money. Terry was saying that they have 400 SKUs. We also have at Biomed 400 NPNs, and trying to fit all that text on a small bottle. I'll keep the name of the, but you know, it's impossible. We'd have to increase the size of the bottle or put it in a box, and that's just wasted space and more products that have to be recycled or landfill or whatever, right? So it's I'm going to spin a lot of things there, but it was said that we have to make our voice heard, and it's more than just there's postcards out here. Oh, I blurred my screen, so I have to take it out. I'll blur.
I'll post a link in the chat of the SOS website too.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. So people are doing the right thing, and they're giving out their postcards. But I've been in Ottawa, and I'm heading to Ottawa tomorrow to be on Parliament Hill for Monday and Tuesday, talking to our MPs. But a couple of the MPs say, "Oh yeah, I've got a stack of these postcards on my desk." What do you think they're doing about it? Nothing, right? And so they got to make it more personal. Find out, talk about your story. Marie, talk about how many years you've been a herbalist and doing what you do, and Terry, so everyone has to make it personal. Last time, 6 months ago when I was in Ottawa, they asked me to go to a press conference on the Hill. So I did. And I actually brought it back to the fact that I'm Canadian-born Chinese. My mother's Canadian-born Chinese, and my grandmother and grandparents, they came from Europe and China. But we've been using traditional Chinese medicines for 3 generations, and now my kids do it. So that's 4 generations. And a lot of families and friends that I know aren't even aware of what's going to happen. So to Terry's point earlier, we're going to lose a potential of a lot of products because they cannot afford to accommodate both plain language labeling or cost recovery. They will disappear. We won't even know about it. And when we come to Canada, all of us, everyone who's come to Canada, we came for it's the land of opportunity, freedom of choice, and health should be a freedom of choice. You should have the choice to prove quality health to have access to quality health supplements. And slowly, one by one, they will remove them. If you've noticed, Ayurvedic medicine has slipped away from Canada. It'll be very hard for you to find good Ayurvedic remedies in Canada because the hoop is too hard to jump through. Through these audits recently, there's a company that we've been dealing with for over 30 years at Biomed in Germany called Nestman Pharma, who we get homeopathic remedy and herbal remedies. This last audit we had, and Biomed had 3 audits in the last 2.5 years. The initial pilot audit, a follow-up audit, and now a full site audit. A lot of people say it's because I am such an advocate that Health Canada's aware that I'm pushing back and, hey, you know what? This guy's too loud, so let's snuff him out. I hate to say it, I don't think it's true, but I've been told that. They said, hey, you got to calm down, Gav, because they're going to audit you again. But Nestman said, Gavin, we can no longer provide all the information and jump through all the testing requirements that they are asking to import these herbal remedy and homeopathic remedies into Canada. So we're going to have to no longer supply you with products and no longer be on your site license and no longer be in Canada. That hurts.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Like, wow, they're an amazing company that's been around for years. And you guys know there's a lot of other herbal companies that they're going to say the juice is not worth the squeeze. We cannot afford to be in Canada anymore. And Canada is a small market. If you take Canada's market compared to the United States or around the world, it's not a big market. But that doesn't discount that there are 40 million residents in Canada who should have the ability to choose what they want for their health concerns. And if we so that's with the plain language labeling. But there's when we go to cost recovery, like the $542 for the right to sell, that's every year you have to pay it. So we have 400 NPNs. So does that mean I'm going to pay $200,000 a year for right to sell? Well, I'm going to tell you some of the herbs and homeopathics and Chinese remedies we sell, we don't sell a lot of. The 80-20 rule that Marie was talking about, they're there because our practitioners say we can't get them anywhere else. So I said, okay, I'll bring them in. We don't make money on them, but now I'm going to lose a lot of money. So we actually looked, and there's a couple of remedies. We might sell 30 bottles a year. Well, why would I pay $542 annual licensing fee to keep those? If I had to add that to the cost of the products, and goes from me to the wholesale, to the retailer, to the consumer, that's a lot of money that they're going to be paying for something, a basic homeopathic or a basic herb. No one will pay $100 for a homeopathic remedy or a herbal remedy. It doesn't make sense, right? I was talking to Dr. Sud, and we were working on one of these remedies that we brought in from Europe. And he says, Gavin, in order for us to jump through all the hoops that Health Canada wants, for us to test every raw material, for the pesticides, for the microbial, checking the suitability testing and all this, he goes, I'm going to raise your cost of goods almost 10 times. And I said, what? That doesn't make sense. He goes, that's what they're asking. And so we all have to be aware of this, that even though we might have three things on the tables, like Vanessa's Law, plain language labeling, and cost recovery, those are three things that they hit us with hard during COVID. We never had any consultation with them. They just snuck it in the back door.
Well, I want to rephrase. They kind of hit that like at the first summer where we weren't paying attention after COVID. Kind of like
they had started them in play 2017. They were aware of them. They knew what Vanessa's Law was even 2015. But they knew they were ramping up to do this. And when they finally gazetted it last year for the plain language labeling on July 6th, they didn't give us much time. And we had, I think it was a 45-day consultation, if I remember. It was less than 60. It was really short.
They did have to extend it because it was totally short, but it was still short. And it was done by midsummer when everybody is on vacation. It just was like nobody was paying attention kind of thing. And that was purposefully.
Yeah. You're right. They did it in the summer. So we could not talk to members of Parliament because they're all back home. They're not on Parliament Hill. A lot of people weren't aware of it. It was a very quiet gazette. But it was all internal. And it was not there. We would all love to have real dialogue with Health Canada to find a solution that works for all Canadians, for the Canadian government, for the Canadian businessman, for the Canadian end consumer using the product. We're looking for a win-win-win situation, not just the government winning. And one of the I'm not sure if everyone knows, Natalie Page is the current Director General of Health Canada. She's trying to do her best. But in one of the meetings at Health Canada, she was asked, well, why are you guys doing this? And the short response she gave is, well, NNHPD needs the money to run its business. Wow. We all need money to run our businesses. But let's try to work it out so we all win and we can keep the businesses alive. For some of these companies, if we go to the NPN applications, last year, my company applied for 3 novel class 3s. And Terry was saying that's 58,000. That's 58,000 for the application. That doesn't guarantee you get a license. And then they actually added on top of that, it's a novel safety and efficacy amendment because they're going to hit us with all that. That's another $23,000. And then there's the novel quality amendment, which is another $8,000. So it keeps on adding up. Before you know it, you're going to be paying $100,000, and it doesn't guarantee they give you an MPN. They could still say, you know what, here's an IRN. You need to answer in a week. We can't answer it. Reject, reapply. And you got to do it all again. So we have to work with them to find a better solution. And how do we work with them? We have to make our voices heard. We have to not just send a postcard in, because the postcards end up on the MP's desks and they go, well, I got a stack of them, but they're all the same. They read one and yeah, I got 1,000 on my desk. That doesn't mean it. Make it more personal. Talk about your own stories. Like I talked about the traditional Chinese medicine. Now I don't have access. I was talking to a lab the other day, and she says, well, I'm of Indian descent and I take Ayurvedic medicines. And you're right. I'll meet you on the hill and I'm going to bring that up. But in talking to the lab, here's another thing I should bring up is if we hire companies to apply for NPNs and do our PLAs, our product licensing applications for those who apply for licenses. I've been doing these applications since they came into play 2004. So I've done over 2,000 of them in my career. Now I don't. I have staff who do that, and I assist. But if we were to hire a consultant or the staff, it doesn't cost me the fees, the $1,100 for a class 1 or $2,700 for a class 2, or I love how they do it. It's $2,761 for a class 2 or $7,209.
You want me to pull that up?
Yeah,
right now?
It's so crazy. But where do you get the $9? But they said that's what they did an analysis, and it cost yes, thank you, Yarrow. It cost Health Canada that much money to assess the application. Well, wait a second. If we're applying for a class 1 application, we're attesting to a monograph. It's already done. You just have to look at it. Yep, check off. Boom. So are they paying people $1,124 an hour to look at it? I'm a little bit confused by that. And so this is where we have to, if we were to go to the independents, I've asked so many independent companies, and there's companies out there who will do a class 1 for $375 to $600. Some are a little bit more expensive, but I see a lot around that range. And class 2 is a little bit more, and class 3s, I've seen 10, 15,000. If it's novel, they maybe go higher than that. But these are the consultants who are going to find all the information that you need to get your license. And so if we're supplying all the information and it's there for Health Canada just to check, why did they say it cost $58,000 to review that application? It doesn't make sense. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Las Vegas for.
I mean, this one right here, the class 3 novel.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and then the site license fee. I mean, like that is an annual fee as well, or that's your application. Sorry. That's
the importer, like say if you're importing, that's 20,000. So let's say even if you had a health food store and you wanted to import supplements to sell in your store, you're going to have to get that importer site license, and people aren't aware of that.
Yeah, you want to bring Traumeel in or something, if you're like whatever it is, it's like,
man, Yarrow, I'm trying to get Traumeel back. I mean,
I know, but so many people rely on it, and then so they're actually importing it now,
but they can only bring it in for personal consumption.
Right.
So that's where you have to look at it closely. You can 3 months supply, no problem. You'll be able to get that in. And Traumeel is a great example. And I remember because we were at CISU with Harlan, we originally brought Heal to Canada. So I remember learning how to make homeopathy and do that in the back of CISU. And now that Traumeel left Canada and left the United States because there's just too many, it wasn't worth it for them to stay in North America. I would love to have that product back. I remember I still have a few tubes these are 20 years old. I still reach into my medicine cabinet and I'm going to use them.
Hopefully you don't keep them next to your peppermint.
No, I don't. Thank you. But this is where we have to make it more personal. Talk to your member of parliament and make sure they're listening. And remember, make sure that they know that you're not just one vote. You're the vote of all your friends and family. You're the vote of all your customers, all your patients. Like they're not aware of that. They're not thinking of it like that. The Liberals right now, every time we try to approach them, they say, no, the Standing Committee on Health has shown this. They've shown that there's a danger. You know, I'm not sure if you watched the Standing on Health Committee on Health a month ago, where Health Canada said, due to natural health products, a child in Alberta died. Well, that's an outright lie. That child didn't die from taking a natural health product. That child died because they chose to treat their child in a certain way. And I don't want to get into the politics of it, but it wasn't because they took a natural health product and it killed the child. And even when the member of parliament said to the Health Canada representatives, you know, you need to retract that because that's an untruth. They didn't. So this is where we need to make sure that the politicians are aware so that they can lobby and fight for us. And right now, Don Davies, the NDP health critic, he's on our side fighting, and he's been a good leader in fighting for our rights, as well as Dr. Stephen Ellis for the Conservatives. Like, they're the two oppositions for the health, and we need to get to them, and need to get to your MP to get to them, but make it personal. Write that letter. Don't just write the postcard and send the postcard. Make it personal to something that you know you're going to lose. And a lot of people aren't even aware that NHPs are not just vitamins, supplements, herbs, homeopathy, traditional Chinese medicine. It could be your toothpaste. It could be your shampoo. It could be your, there's so many different things that it could be that you're not aware of and we're not aware of. So when Deloitte, I know Terry talked about, CHFA hired Deloitte to do a couple investigations for us and find information. They came back with, 3/4 of the population are using natural health products, and they might not know it. And then when they go to buy that product, it's gone. And then what do? Or they go to a place like Finlandia, who now Harlan said, you know what, this is going to be too much for me. I'm getting older. I'm still want to stay in the industry, but the pharmacy is a big machine to run. It really was. And our herbal compounding was a big machine to run. And the pharmacy compounding, a big machine to run. So he sold it. So there's people like him who will say, you know what, I'm going to move on. But some might just say, I'm going to close. So the stores and the businesses that may be a ma and pop, something that's been around for generations that we all know and love and have used their products and have benefited from their products, have said, they're going to say, wow, this is just too much of a fight for me to deal with. So we have to help support them, because there's a lot of people who've been in this industry. Like, I'm 36 years in this industry. There's a lot of people who've been longer than me. Harlan, 50 years. That's a long time. Terry, I know you've been you're getting there. I don't want to put how old people are, but we've been in it for a long time. And there gets to be a point where some are going, I can't afford to do the fight anymore. So we all have to band together and fight for them. And if we don't, it's our generation will be hit. But it's not only that, it's the next generation won't even know what some of these remedies are. What is herbal remedies? It's kind of like us saying, oh yeah, when I was a kid, we used to go to Toys and Wheels and get a toy. What's a Toys and Wheels? Or, you know what I mean? People don't know what this is, or right? Or, oh yeah, well, I remember when I had to look through the encyclopedia and pull this. What's an encyclopedia? Right? Or I remember calling my member of parliament on the phone. What? You had a phone? It was plugged. It was a rotary dial plugged in the wall. People don't know this, right? So things disappear as we evolve. But as evolution happens, you shouldn't lose sight of traditional remedies. Health Canada, I'm going to leave on this last point, and there could be questions, whatever. Health Canada, in the Standing Committee on Health, said, well, you know what? Traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, herbal medicine, homeopathic medicine, they don't meet modern science. Well, guess what? Chinese medicine is over 5,000 years old. 5,000 years ago, it was modern science. It hasn't killed anyone in 5,000 years. So why is it now? Well, until we retest it with modern science, it's dangerous. That doesn't make any sense at all. So everyone needs to know the facts and get a little bit passionate about it and talk to people that can help fight for this cause. Anyways.
Oh, well said. Gavin, I'm glad you're a spokesperson for this. That was great. And I just want to, I think we all want to echo what you're sharing. I do want to give the stage to Katolen, who's sipping back on a nice herbal beverage there. And she's been in this fight too a long time, an advocate for herbal medicine for a long time, and has taken a lot of time out of her life to put towards this, whether it's whether it's working in lobbying for herbalists, whether it's working with the association. So from the Herbal Association and from yourself and your experience, can you share a little bit of your lens on the current situation? And then we're going to go back and forth with, there's definitely questions, but we got great people in the audience too, who are helping answer many of the questions that are coming up. So we'll just kind of go back and forth after that.
Thank you, Yarrow. I just want to really kind of start off by launching from a few of the points that have been brought up. And one is that many of the people that are advocates for the accessibility of plants and our accessibility of our right to practice as herbalists have been in this field for 40 or 50 years. And I remember 20 years ago when I was just coming out being a practitioner, I was seeing many of my mentors leading the crusade, leading the fight. I remember Chanchal Cabrera 20 some years ago being a part of the expert advisory committee. And one of the things that Marie spoke about was going back and trying to access points, trying to access what the government promised us when we said yes, we want some regulation over natural health products. We want them safe. We want to make sure they're effective. But their promises that they gave, that they said we will ensure safety and efficiency and effectiveness, the promises have not been consistent with how they are micro-regulating or going into the fine points and detailing and changing things now. Originally, we had a third category where herbs not being prescriptions and not being food, we had a third category where herbs just kind of were somewhere in between, and that seemed like an okay position. But that didn't last very long, and now we're classified with hand sanitizer and toothpaste and various over-the-counters. And when I attend various natural and non-prescription health directorate meetings, it is the big players. It is all of the Johnson & Johnson and Procter & Gamble and all of the big names who are part of the consultation, not because they're experts in herbal medicine, but because they have vested interest in all the other areas that are now in the same category. And so just backing up, today I'm representing the Canadian Council of Herbalist Associations. And in 2005, herbalists throughout the entire country thought that we needed to get together. We needed to have one voice to speak to the federal government to make sure that we still had accessibility to our plants, that we still had the right to practice. And so many of the founding members of that association were on the standing health committee that offered 52 recommendations that seem not to be heard today. Many of them were parts of health committee reports. And so today, and in the summertime, I spent most of my summer writing a 5-page document on behalf of the CCHA on the Cost Recovery Initiative. So yes, irony, we all get to spend our summers writing reports. But one of the things that I came up with in my research was the fact that the NNHPD seems to be aligning with some international mandates, kind of creating a harmonization of international organizations. And in my research, I discovered that New Zealand recently passed the Therapeutic Goods Bill in July of 2023. So conveniently on par with what is happening in Canada. But due to suggestions and due to a number of protests and from the industry in New Zealand, the government announced an exemption scheme for small-scale natural health product manufacturers. And so that was one of the pieces that I put in the letter. At what point does all of this cost recovery initiative, well, at no point can any one business afford $100,000 for, like, we are not in the field to sell products and make a profit. We're also in the field because we care about this industry and we care about the products, and we see the good that these products can offer our clients and consumers, and we can see the impact that have no accessibility to these products. If consumers have no accessibility to these products, the cost for the medical industry would skyrocket. And so we are all in this field for other reasons rather than just making a profit. One of the things that I come back around to again is that our memories seem to be very short. And so when Marie went and looked back at her documents from 1997, I think we need to be doing that. We need to have people who have a pulse on history. I even spend hours like, where is that document? And trying to find the wording of a document from 10 years ago. And it's interesting, one or two words might get changed, and then it's an entirely different meaning that subtly gets changed in the document. So I've spoken about this a lot, but the time when the government started to insert in one of the reports, we will make some changes to the NNHPD documentation, and they subtly changed traditional medicine to historical medicine. And I hit the floor. Like that was a turning point for me. And I'm like, no way is that going to go down, not on my watch. Because really it was a subtle sweeping under the carpet of our traditional history, of our culture, of our rights to use our plant medicine. And so traditional medicine is now back. That was one of our main CCHA concerns, among others, in our in-person meeting in Ottawa a number of years ago. Our last NNHPD meeting was in October of 2022, so just a few months before the Cost Recovery Initiative came out. And it was online, but we specifically asked, are there any changes? Are there changes to our compounding policy? Are there any changes that we need to be aware of regarding the schedules? And then we asked, what is happening with Schedule 3, as we've been asking for many years, because the conversation there has been really under the carpet. It's just been about labeling, and the ways that the labeling initiative has happened could be a story in itself, but I'll just leave that to the side. They said no. They kind of looked at one another. They didn't say anything. All looked at one another on the screens, and then they said no. There's no changes that we can see into the future that will affect you or the industry. And so a few months later, the Cost Recovery Initiative came out. And so I also just want to voice the impact for consumers and the potential impact for practitioners. We still have our compounding clause, which when it was put into place due to a number of CCHA and other concerned individuals often traveling to Ottawa on their own expense to lobby the government. The compounding clause allows currently herbalists to make their medicine without a site license, without good manufacturing processes, when in the client-practitioner relationship. But when I was searching through documents from 20 years ago versus now, the compounding clause now has a little word called interim compounding clause inserted in front of it. And so these little words make a difference. And I really see the importance of more and more people saving documents, creating files, starting to learn the history and kind of the game that the industry has been playing. I think regulations and government regulations regulate, and over years and years, they tend to regulate more, in my opinion. And perhaps there needs to be another way. I'm not at all certain anymore if going along with their regulations and recommendations is actually the answer. my personal opinion. I've thought about it long and hard, but how do Canadian citizens claim herbal medicine as being part of their culture and their history and part of their foods, and ensure that their medicine is accessible, but otherwise hands off, let the experts do the assessment, because practitioners are very concerned about their accessibility of medicine, the cost to consumers, the cost of importing. That's another whole thing that might be a concern. And so if you're listening, I think this is a cause where it is so important to reach out, to speak to your MPs, to write letters, and to talk to your neighbors and your family about what is happening. Because as Gavin mentioned, many people are not aware. Over 10 years, I've kept an eye on the prices going up, and prices are increasing for natural health products. I've also kept my eye on what is happening in pharmacies. I would go down the aisle and look at like a sleep aid and look at the claims on a prescription over-the-counter sleep aid and find it to be a sentence of a warning, like, do not take for longer than 10 days without consulting your doctor. But then I'd go around the corner and look at the valerian warnings and find them a mile long. And to me, that there's something really inconsistent here about what is happening. And so I guess we need people to be concerned about this. We need people to be speaking about this and writing letters and engaging your neighbors, talking to your family, and making a difference here. And I guess just to wrap up, I'm a big believer of faith versus fear. And I do believe that with enough voices that things can change. I'm not certain that they will change in the way that we want them to at this point. Personally, my personal opinion is that having herbs as a separate category on its own makes a whole lot of difference, but that's a whole other conversation.
Oh, thank you, Katolen, for your words. As you can all tell who are watching this, we have a lot to say. There's a lot. This conversation is just a little teaser of the larger conversation happening within every organization, within our associations, within the CCHA or the CFA or CFHA, and within all of this industry. And so we really wanted to give you a bit more of like some perspective and some ground space, but because, we could say a lot about this, I really want to turn this back to like, what can we do? And already some things have been mentioned. I wanted to mention one, like when I talked to my MP, and luckily as a company, I will say, if you have a company, go to your Chamber of Commerce and have them arrange meetings with your MPs. They do that. They have that. They got their, like, they're on the Rolodex. So like, if it's not just you as a single business, go to your Chamber of Commerce. This is what they're for. This is what our associations are for. This is what our lobby groups together are for. And when I went to him, the reason he knew about this issue is because at like just a regular old on the street meet and greet, Moonlight Madness type event, he was out there shaking hands with people, and a concerned citizen said, this is how this affects me, and you need to know about this. You need to educate yourself. And if you're not educated about NPNs and what's happening with Health Canada right now, they're not serving us, and I'm not going to vote for you. So like, get in their face. Like that's what I saw. And when he met me, that was the biggest impact. I could see it all over him. Like, whoa, this is actually a real thing. And so, like Gavin said, I just want to echo that the stack of cards, that's good. But like so many issues in our world, there's a lot of greenwashing or whitewashing where, well, I did my part. I'm accountable to the Me Too movement because I appreciate women differently, or not to get like into other movements. But the reality is that most of us aren't actually doing the work until we're doing the work. And that means showing up authentically in every way we can to spread this word. So I just want to leave, from my perspective, with that is the most important thing, that actions are more important than just words or feeling guilt-free because we're doing our part. It's really, in this case, that's what we can do. And to let our families know, let our communities know, hey, like, that echinacea you rely on, well, that company is not the top company in the country. likely instead of one or instead of 4 different types, you're going to have one next year. A lot of those international brands, like, we were hearing from like New Chapter pulling out of Canada, back in the day when HerbFarm pulled out of Canada because of the regulations. This is a common theme that has come over and over again. We've seen so many companies already pull out, many companies that don't want to deal with our country at all. And then all the small people, when I was starting out, people are like, what are you doing? This is crazy. Like unless you're selling $1 million worth of product, there is no way you can even be in this market. So even if you're a regional company, to begin with, just selling in your store, most herbalists end up feeling like drug dealers. Like, I'm at the farmer's market, man, I got some tincture, you want some? It's like this weird thing where we're almost witch hunted, for trying to bring plant medicine, which is fundamentally our natural world supporting us. Like a dog eats grass to help its digestive system. Why can a human not be able to, take a wheatgrass shot without having a list of problems that it might cause them? So that's where I stand on this. Fundamentally, the system is rigged. It's a paperwork pushing system, and the more layers of bureaucracy that get put on it, the harder it is as a barrier to entry. And just, I've shared a couple of links in here. There's a lot more. That SOS website has a lot of great links to it. But the biggest thing that you can do from your perspective, I want to just invite that it's easy to step into fear here. And that's not the emotion that will make any kind of difference, right? We all know that fear puts us in a freeze or flight mode. And we actually need to get into that fight mode. And part of that, and not always just fight, but we want regulation. It's not like a you're black and we're white situation. The industry actually is asking for regulation. We know the regulation supports people feeling safe. It supports the right lanes for industry to go in. Everyone knows the rules. Everyone knows what boxes to check and what not to do. And it really helps build confidence for everybody. What we don't want is over-regulation, and done in a way that you're actually saying, wait a minute, this is one of the fastest growing industries in North America. Let's tax the living bejesus out of them through this process, when actually healthcare is fundamentally something that is backed up by our government. Can they change that a little bit? So it's not just giving people free pharmaceuticals. We're actually supporting this industry and saying they're actually helping keep people out of hospitals. You know how much it costs for somebody to sit in a hospital all day? And that's like all the major, like the 4 horsemen, as we call them, the major diseases of our time, they all stem from the same stuff. And all that stuff is really not well dealt with from our pharmaceutical industry. It's really well dealt with, though, from a natural holistic approach, from a lifestyle balance that stems from having these remedies available. So that's where I want to leave it. And I want to just kind of say that we're going to take a few minutes over the time here, but I just want to get you all to just kind of leave with 2 minutes of what you would like to share last in closing, and just kind of open it up for that. And then we'll continue this conversation on the sidelines. And all the links for all of our presenters are in the information, and we'll put a few more links into the chat for you to just kind of follow up. And please, in the chat, light it up. Let us know what you think and some of your concerns. We won't be able to answer all the questions, but I'm going to go back to Terry. What are just like 2 minutes of your thoughts on how we can create a difference and be the change, and what would you like to see happen?
Yeah, thanks again, Yarrow. One thing I've observed, there is a personal exemption, import exemption, and this applies, especially to people like manufacturers, of course, but with a personal import exemption, I've seen the U.S. market, products like you find on iHerb and other these types of companies, the relative to the Canadian market, the cost differential seems to be constantly growing. In other words, Canadian products are getting more expensive, American products less expensive relative to each other, and something has to be done about that, obviously. And anyways, our country's going into a it's like a tailspin when it comes to natural health products, and we just need to we really have to engage our MPs and let them know exactly what's happening, because I think a lot of them are still in the dark, despite all the postcards, etc. Meet with your MPs, do what you can, and thanks again for having me on the panel.
Well, Terry, I know you're a humble man, but you've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes on this. So really, thanks again for your efforts in this work as well.
Thanks, Yarrow.
Marie, what are your thoughts in closing around what we can do and what you hope to see for in the future?
Well, I'm a bit like Kathleen, I'm an eternal optimist, and I like to have faith in, the truth will come out, but we have to speak it loud. I think for me, the driving point of all this is that herbal medicine in its essence is a grassroots medicine, and it has to stay available and affordable for everyone. It cannot become an elite product. I can do business with elite customer, it's probably more, there's probably more money to do but herbal medicine, all kinds of herbal medicine, natural health product in their true form, not out of a pharmaceutical lab. It's grassroots. It belongs to the people. It comes from the people. It comes from our tradition, and it has to stay affordable. And I really, I think that the point that people will just buy it, how easy it is to buy it across the border because it's cheaper, even at the current exchange for US dollar right now. Imagine if the Canadian dollar goes up, it's going to be worse. So so let's keep the access for a mid-range family to have what we started with in 97, freedom of choice. Can we choose how we care for ourselves? Thank you for organizing and inviting us, Yarrow. It's important.
It is. More of these conversations need to continue to
Yeah.
have. So
Yeah.
from what Marie is saying, keep that conversation going. And yeah, I love what you say about that mid-range family. And I love that you have some documents from way back when to really hold some accountability. This is what we need, this type of action. So appreciate the work you're doing as well. I guess I will move that on to Katolen. Yeah, why don't you share, and then Gavin, you're going to close us out with some last thoughts. So, Katolen, what do you hope for the future, and what do you see for the now?
Yeah, so I guess in terms of an action item, I guess a call to action for all of the plant people out there. If you are wanting to do something, I would encourage you to look at joining your local provincial herbal associations. There's always ways to volunteer. You can join as students. It's often very affordable. You can join on subcommittees, or you can even put your name in to be a director and then start to learn some of the behind the scenes politics that are really some game changers here, and start to document some of the history which is happening last month, last week, today, tomorrow, that we may not remember in 10 years if there are not many of us around. So we do need a lot of people who are keeping a pulse on what is happening, who can also kind of be trailblazers for the future. We need people who know the history. I would encourage people to follow associations. So the Canadian Council of Herbalist Associations has a website and Instagram that is keeping people aware of things that are happening politically. There are various provincial associations you can look at, as well as the Canadian Health Food Association and the NHPPA.org association. And remember that herbs are people's medicine, and to continue your belief in the plant medicine. The plants are always going to be there. We just need to try and ensure that we have accessibility to them in an affordable way.
I love that. That's a really easy call to action, is to get involved with your associations, in that sense. That's something that every one of us can take a step in. Most associations have student memberships, right? There's a lot of ways. You don't have to just get in at the highest level of the membership. So I just really appreciate that. And, you know, as somebody who's a part of a number of different associations, even the CHFA, I was like, okay, what is this group really doing? And all of a sudden this fight comes up and it's like, whoa, 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 this is important. Like, I am so glad that we have lawyers and a whole team of people like dedicated to this. And like, wow, am I ever like now wearing this badge of honor as a CHFA member? You know, so I just will say that what you're saying around those associations and groups, these are the moments when they really matter. And so, yeah, keep that involvement and engagement and help to support this through the process. So thank you, Katolen, for all the work you do. You've been, I don't know how many thousands of hours you've volunteered to support herbalism, but really, truly, in my heart, you're a legend. All right, Gavin, take us home with your thoughts and last words on how we're going to move forward.
Thanks, Yarrow. You know what? I'm going to repeat your sentiments earlier. Is we just need to stay positive. We will win, and we have to remember how truly blessed we are to have access to what we have at this current time, and realize that you have to be a voice and not just stand in the shadows and say, "Well, yeah, I sent my postcard" or something like that, or "I've talked to my friend about it." Talk to someone who can make a difference, so that we, like I said, we're truly blessed to have access to all these herbs. And as we move forward, we want next generations to still have the same access. If not even more, we'll discover more. We're always discovering. So always think positive, do your part, and be proud of what we've done and where we're going.
Well said and potent. All right, well, these are some of the people behind the scenes doing this work. These are just a few of the voices. The voices are many, and a lot of us have put a lot of time into trying to empower Canadians with access to natural medicine. We've got a lot of people who care about this. Every household who uses natural remedies is affected by this. So get loud, get proud of your medicine, and get out and support.